I watched him pack his suitcase, a smug smile on his face, completely unaware that this trip wasn't going to be what he expected. While he thought he was sneaking away with her to the Caribbean, I was already there, booked the room next door, armed with a plan that would expose everything. And the best part, I brought someone he never saw coming, her fiancé. Every move he made felt like a countdown. The zipper of his suitcase, the soft shuffle of clothes, the lock snapping shut, each sound made my pulse spike, because this wasn't just a trip. This was the moment his carefully constructed secret was about to crumble, and I would be there to watch it happen. Before I go any further, if you're watching this story unfold and feeling even a fraction of the tension I felt, consider subscribing. It helps women like us share stories that hit too close to home. I'm Evelyn, 28, and this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about reclaiming power, finding clarity, and finally standing tall when someone thought they could break you. He didn't glance at me as he grabbed his passport. "I'll be back Sunday," he said, tossing the wallet onto the bed like it didn't matter. "Try not to miss me too much." "I won't," I murmured, and for once, I didn't hide the edge in my voice. He didn't hear me, of course. He never did. I had watched him grow careless over time, each like carving deeper into our marriage, each secret building a bridge toward this moment. And now, the pieces were in place. I had tracked their flights, their hotel bookings, every subtle pattern he thought I'd never notice. Everything he believed was hidden was now exposed, ready to collide with the truth he couldn't control. Booking the room next door wasn't just about proximity. It was about strategy. I needed the perfect vantage point, close enough to watch, far enough to remain invisible. And then there was him, the one person who would turn this night into chaos. Her fiancé, the man she really loved. I imagined his face when he saw her safe, confident, and fully aware of the betrayal that had tried to shadow her life. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the balcony, letting the tension in my shoulders ease just slightly. Not because I was relaxing, but because anticipation demanded patience. The Caribbean night stretched out before me, full of potential and danger. Every sound, every distant laugh from the lobby, reminded me that the plan was set in motion. He thought he was in control. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. And yet, a small, nagging question lingered. Would he truly understand how long I had known? How long I had endured silently, collecting evidence, observing patterns, preparing for this moment? Or would his arrogance blind him, leaving him shocked and helpless when reality finally hit? I checked my phone one last time. Messages scheduled. Confirmations verified. Every detail aligned, except one, how he would react when he saw him. I couldn't predict that, and part of me wanted to. Part of me needed to. Because the chaos of that reaction, that raw, unguarded moment, was the sweetest part of all. As I sat in the dark, waiting for tomorrow, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my peace. I would not be the woman crying alone after betrayal. I would not be the woman begging for explanations that would never come. I would be the woman who stood unwavering, letting the truth ripple through everyone who had underestimated her. The ocean breeze drifted faintly through the balcony doors, carrying the scent of freedom, though I didn't breathe it in. I held it inside, letting it mingle with my growing anticipation. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would witness the unmasking of a man who thought he was clever and the triumph of a woman he had believed powerless. And as I drifted off to sleep, my final thought was simple. I had done everything right. The stage was set. The players were in position. The ending, the one I would savor, was mine. Morning arrived like a warning. The Caribbean sun cut through the blinds of my hotel room, painting golden stripes across the floor. I sat on the edge of the bed, coffee in hand, listening to the faint hum of activity outside. My phone buzzed, a notification confirming their arrival. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with a sharp, sweet anticipation. Today was the day. Why did he think he could walk into paradise and pretend everything was normal? He didn't know that I had anticipated every move, every whispered joke, every smug glance he thought he could hide. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the bitterness sharpen my focus. This wasn't a vacation for me. It was a battlefield. The elevator chimed below. Footsteps. Laughter. Their laughter. I froze. Could they sense that the world had shifted? That the illusion of secrecy was crumbling beneath their feet? The question alone made my pulse spike. I slid the door open just enough to peek through the gap in the curtains. There they were. Him, shirt slightly wrinkled, hair mussed from travel. And her. The way she laughed, the way she leaned into him as if the world had no witnesses. My stomach churned, but it wasn't despair. It was anticipation. The kind that tastes like cold steel and satisfaction. I texted her fiancé, room 312. Waiting. The words were simple, neutral. Yet in that simplicity lay the seed of chaos. Would he arrive soon enough? Would the timing be perfect? These questions danced through my mind as I watched the pair move toward the lobby. I paced the room, running through the scenario again and again. What would I say? How would I react if he looked at me like he knew nothing? I could almost see the look in his eyes, the confusion, the dawning panic. That moment was worth all the sleepless nights, all the unanswered questions, all the silent tears. The sound of the door opening startled me. A bellhop appeared, wheeling their luggage. I held my breath, willing them to take the stairs slowly, just long enough for the tension to build. They didn't notice me. They never did. And yet, I felt my own heartbeat loud enough to echo in the quiet room. Why did betrayal feel heavier when you knew the truth but had to wait for the world to catch up? I asked myself that question silently, taking another sip of coffee, letting the bitterness ground me. Every detail mattered. The glint of sunlight on her sunglasses, the faint click of his shoes on tile, the murmur of their voices drifting upward. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. The sound of her keycard sliding into the neighboring door. The door opening. I held my breath, watching shadows stretch across the room, waiting for the perfect instant. And then, silence. A soft, deceptive calm that made the tension nearly unbearable. Minutes stretched into eternity. Where was he? Why hadn't her fiancé arrived yet? The uncertainty gnawed at me, yet I refused to panic. Patience, I reminded myself, is the weapon of those who survive betrayal. And I would survive. I would thrive. The phone buzzed again. A single message. Outside. Ready. Relief washed over me, sharp and sudden. The plan was back on track. Now it was time to set the stage, to pull the threads that would unravel everything. I positioned myself just inside the door, invisible yet commanding, and waited. The moment he stepped inside, he would feel it, the subtle shift in the air, the undeniable change that hinted at consequences. Would he recognize it? Or would he walk into the trap with the same smug arrogance that had marked every mistake he ever made? Footsteps. The corridor door clicked open. And then I heard the voice I had imagined 1,000 times, the voice that would ignite the confrontation. Evelyn. I turned slowly, heart racing, calm, but ready. The tension snapped like a wire. There he was, close enough that I could see the worry creeping into his expression, but not fear yet, just curiosity, suspicion, the perfect precursor to panic. And then, she appeared behind him, her hand brushing against his arm. I saw the flicker of recognition cross her face, though she didn't know what it meant. She didn't know that the game had already begun, that the player she trusted so blindly was about to be unmasked. My phone buzzed again. The final piece. Her fiancé, stepping out of the elevator. Calm, composed, in control. And yet, the tension radiating off him was unmistakable. He knew why he was there. He knew the rules. But would the timing be perfect? Would the collision be catastrophic? The next few moments passed in slow motion. Every glance, every breath, every subtle movement was charged with anticipation. They didn't see him yet. They didn't see me fully. But when the moment came, It would be explosive. The questions that had haunted me for months, the lies, the silences, the betrayals, would all demand answers. And I would be there, at the center, holding the truth like a weapon. I felt a strange calm wash over me. This was the moment I had been preparing for. This was the moment that would redefine everything. And yet, beneath that calm, a single thought pulsed like a heartbeat. What if the moment spiraled beyond my control? Then, the sound that made my stomach drop and pulse race at the same time, the click of a lock, the soft whisper of footsteps approaching the door across the hall. They were coming. Every carefully laid plan, every calculated step, now hinged on seconds. I took a deep breath. Stepping out from the shadows, I adjusted my expression, ready to play the part one had rehearsed 1,000 times. The confrontation was imminent. The truth was inevitable. And when it hit, no one would walk away unchanged. But just as I was about to make my move, a sharp knock at my door froze me in place. A voice, calm yet commanding, said, "Evelyn, we need to talk, now." And in that instant, I realized that even the best laid plans could spiral in ways I had never imagined. The knock echoed again, louder this time, each tap sharp like a warning. My pulse spiked. Who was it? Her fiancé? A hotel staff member? Or, heaven forbid, the person who could ruin everything before I had the chance to act? I stood frozen for a second, caught between patience and panic, letting the question hang heavy in the air. I opened the door just a crack, forcing myself to appear calm. And there he was. Not him, not her, but someone I hadn't fully expected at this moment. My best friend, Mark. His eyes, steady and knowing, met mine. "It's time," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of months of shared strategy. "Why him? Why now?" I swallowed hard. My chest tightened with relief and terror. Relief that I wasn't alone in this confrontation. Terror that this was finally happening. Everything I had planned, every scenario I had imagined, suddenly had a living, breathing variable I hadn't fully accounted for. I stepped aside, letting him in. The room felt suddenly smaller. Tension thickened like fog, curling around us, heavy and suffocating. "He doesn't know," Mark whispered. "Not yet, but soon." I nodded, letting my heartbeat steady just enough to focus. Timing was everything. Too soon, and it could unravel. Too late, and it might slip from my control. I had rehearsed every word, every glance, every pause. Yet even now, the unknown loomed, whispering questions I couldn't silence. The distant laughter from their room carried through the thin walls. Every giggle, every step, every casual tone reminded me of the stakes. How long had they been so blind to the truth? How long had I endured, waiting for this exact collision of lies and revelation? I clenched my fists, the smooth glass of my wine cup digging into my palms, reminding me that patience could be sharp, too. Mark nodded toward the door. "They're coming out." My stomach dropped. I could hear the subtle shift, the faint scrape of luggage wheels, the shuffle of feet, and the low hum of her voice as she talked to him. The moment of truth was not just near, it was inevitable. Would they sense it? Would he notice the tension threading through the air like invisible wires ready to snap? I stepped toward the balcony, pretending to admire the ocean while listening intently. And then I saw him, my husband, emerging into the hallway. His expression still carried arrogance, but I could see the first hints of unease in his eyes. Something he didn't expect was in the air, though he didn't yet know what. Why did betrayal feel heavier when you could see it, but not touch it yet? I asked myself silently. Why did anticipation feel like a razor's edge, cutting through the calm I had forced upon myself? I didn't have time to answer. Not now. Not with him so close, so dangerously unaware. The next step was delicate, precise. I signaled to Mark. He moved like a shadow, unseen but fully present. And then, the door to my room opened fully. My phone buzzed. Her fiancé's arrival. Timing aligned. Everything hinged on the next few minutes. I slipped out to the corridor, careful to remain invisible, careful to feel the shift in the air, the tension vibrating like electricity. And then I saw her. Her eyes, bright, unaware, met mine across the hallway. Recognition flickered. Confusion. Suspicion. She didn't know what I had planned, didn't know how close the edge was, didn't know that her world and ours were about to collide spectacularly. I breathed slowly, letting the calm mask the storm inside me. Every detail mattered. The way her hand brushed his arm, the tilt of his head as he laughed, the casual, careless air that had always infuriated me. And now, it would all unravel, piece by piece. Evelyn. His voice cracked slightly, the first break in his confident tone. Panic? Surprise? It was hard to tell, but the shift was unmistakable. He had not expected to find me here. Not now. Not in this position of quiet authority, waiting to watch him unravel. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate. Yes, I said. Just one word, but it carried months of betrayal, heartbreak, and strategy. And suddenly, everything changed. He froze. Her laugh faltered. The moment stretched, taut like a string ready to snap. Her fiancé appeared then, calm, measured, yet radiating control. His eyes locked on her, then on him, and in that instant, the room, or rather, the hallway, shifted. Power, authority, justice. The collision of truth and consequence was no longer theoretical. It was real, and he felt it. What is this? He stammered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by confusion and dawning horror. Every carefully constructed mask cracked under the weight of the moment. You know exactly what this is, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. You thought you could hide. You thought you could escape. But secrets like yours don't vanish. They find their way to the surface. His eyes darted, searching, looking for answers, for allies, for some shred of control. There was none. The realization hit him like a punch. The world had shifted, and I was standing at the center, holding the compass. Her eyes widened. Evelyn. She started, but words failed her. For the first time, the person who had believed herself untouchable felt exposed. The irony wasn't lost on me. Every detail of my plan, every careful maneuver, had led to this. The silence stretched, each second heavy with anticipation. Every heartbeat was a drum signaling the approach of truth. He could not speak, she could not act, and I, finally, was fully alive in this moment. And then, the first tear slid down his cheek, a mixture of shock, guilt, and the first taste of real consequence. How could someone who had believed himself untouchable suddenly feel the weight of everything? He was unraveling. Slowly, painfully, irreversibly. I stepped closer, letting the truth hang in the air like a blade. Do you understand now? I asked. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, just truthfully. Every lie, every betrayal, every secret had led to this exact moment. He swallowed, his throat dry. His arrogance had been replaced by terror. And then, the final piece landed. The fiancé stepped forward, calm but unyielding, and said the words that would forever change the dynamic of power in the hallway. You have a choice now, but it's not the one you wanted. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt my chest tighten again, but this time with satisfaction. Every plan, every detail, had worked. And yet, a single thought raced through my mind. What if he refuses to fall? What if the consequences aren't enough? The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, charged with tension, every second thick with possibility. And then, just as I opened my mouth to speak, the elevator bell chimed. Another arrival. Someone I hadn't expected. Someone who could either shatter or complete the plan. I froze, heart hammering. The next moments, everything, would hinge on the arrival of this unexpected player. And in that instant, I realized the truth had been set free. But the game? The game was far from over. The elevator doors slid open, slow and deliberate, like a countdown I hadn't expected. My chest tightened. Who, or what, was about to step out? I had accounted for nearly everything, every twist, every possible reaction, and yet there was always the chance of an unknown variable. My pulse spiked, and then I saw him, her brother, tall, imposing, eyes sharp and calculating. I hadn't planned for him to be here. Not today. Not now. His presence was a storm rolling in, unpredictable and dangerous. How had he known? How had he sensed something was off? My mind raced. I felt Mark stiffen beside me, a silent warning that things were about to escalate faster than I anticipated. His eyes met mine. No words were needed. This was no longer just about catching a cheetah. This was about the domino effect of every decision, every secret, every lie crashing down in real time. Her brother's gaze swept over us all. First her, then him, then me. Recognition, suspicion, and disbelief flickered across his face in a rhythm I could barely follow. How much had he pieced together? How much did he already know? And how much would he reveal? The tension was unbearable, a taut wire ready to snap. Evelyn. His voice was calm but sharp, carrying the authority of someone used to being in control. I smiled slightly, inwardly thrilled. This was exactly the pressure point I needed, the one person whose arrival could amplify the chaos perfectly. I stepped forward, heart racing, voice steady despite the storm inside me. Yes, it's happening now. All of it. Every word was measured, precise, a calculated arrow aimed at the moment of truth. And yet, I could feel the ripple of uncertainty spreading through the group. He glanced at her, then at her fiancé, then finally at my husband. The unspoken questions hung in the air. Who knew? How long? Why wasn't I included in this before? The tension coiled tighter with every passing second. I could almost see the unsteady ground beneath him cracking under the weight of everything he had hidden. Her brother stepped closer, voice low but forceful. You think you can walk in here, act like nothing's wrong, and everything will be fine? You've underestimated everyone. His eyes locked on him, my husband, and for the first time, I saw fear. Just a flicker, but enough. Enough to know that control had shifted. I glanced at Mark. He nodded, subtle but reassuring. The plan had to adapt now. This wasn't just about revealing the affair. It was about orchestrating a chain reaction that would leave no room for denial, no space for escape. Every step had to be timed perfectly. I took a deep breath, letting the calm settle over me, masking the adrenaline. It's not just about what you've done, I said slowly. It's about what you thought you could get away with, and how little you understood the people around you. Every eye turned to me now. The weight of their attention was intoxicating. Her brother's hand brushed against his shoulder, a subtle gesture that anchored the storm. She deserves to know the truth, all of it, he said firmly. The implication was clear. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and there was no turning back. I stepped closer to him, my voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying authority. Do you understand how long I waited for this? How many nights I lay awake, replaying every lie, every secret, every betrayal? He nodded slightly, the recognition in his eyes confirming that he had lived the same torment. We were aligned. Finally, the sound of luggage wheels scraped against the floor. My husband shifted uncomfortably. He didn't know whether to confront, explain, or escape. And in that hesitation, I saw my opportunity. Timing. Everything hinged on the next few seconds. Her fiancé moved forward, calm, deliberate, presence commanding. We all see the truth now. But you, he pointed at him, my husband, you have a choice. You can try to fix it, or you can face what's coming. Every word landed like a hammer. The stakes had escalated beyond conversation. This was consequence, unflinching and immediate. I felt the room tighten, the air crackling with tension. How much more could he take before the facade crumbled completely? How long before panic replaced arrogance? Every micro-expression, every twitch, every glance was a clue to his unraveling. Then she spoke, voice trembling yet sharp. How could you think I wouldn't find out? How could you think I'd stay blind? Her words were both accusation and revelation, striking like lightning across the room. He swallowed, struggling for an answer, but none came. His defenses were failing. I took a step closer, letting my presence press into the space he thought he controlled. This isn't just about us. It's about everyone you thought you could manipulate, and everyone you hurt along the way. The words hung, heavy, undeniable. No one could ignore them. Her brother's gaze narrowed. And now, he asked, what will you do now? It was a challenge, a demand, a prediction of accountability. The room seemed to shrink as the focus shifted entirely onto him. Every heartbeat, every second, amplified the tension. He tried to speak. His lips moved. Nothing came out. The truth had paralyzed him. And in that silence, the consequences pressed down with relentless weight. I looked at her fiancé, then back at her brother. The chain reaction I had set in motion was complete. The web of lies had tangled, and the predator who thought he was untouchable was caught in its grip. Every glance, every word, every hesitation reinforced the inevitability of exposure. Mark placed a hand gently on my shoulder, a grounding presence. Calm, but ready. The storm was not over, but we were no longer the ones on the edge. We were the ones who held the precipice, watching him teeter, knowing he could fall at any moment. And then it happened, the first crack in his composure. A flash of fear, a word barely whispered, a realization that everything he had counted on, everything he had believed about control and secrecy, was gone. The moment stretched, taut and sharp. Every question I had ever asked myself, the sleepless nights, the silent tears, the rehearsed confrontations, had led here. And yet, the next move was his. The choice was his. And in that instant, just as I thought I had seen the peak of tension, the door to the balcony creaked open. Another shadow appeared, another unknown factor, and everything we thought was under control teetered on the edge of chaos once more. The shadow on the balcony wasn't just any stranger. It was her boss, the one she had confided in months ago, unknowingly leaving the perfect wild card in my plan. I froze for a fraction of a second, calculating every possible outcome. Did his presence strengthen my advantage, or risk everything unraveling? He stepped forward, calm, authoritative, and aware. The kind of presence that could command a room without raising his voice. And suddenly, the air shifted. My husband's smug confidence faltered. For the first time, I saw real fear crawling across his features like shadows at sunset. Evelyn, the boss said quietly, his gaze sharp. It's time we settle this. His words weren't a threat. They were a verdict. Every syllable pressed down, undeniable and heavy. Could he take control of this? Could he dismantle my carefully orchestrated plan with one word, one decision? The question sharpened my focus. I had prepared for nearly everything, but the unpredictability of human reactions was a weapon as dangerous as it was thrilling. I stepped closer to my husband. My voice was calm, deliberate, controlled. Do you understand what's happening now? All of your lies, all of your secrets, have been exposed. There's no hiding anymore. The words were heavy, the gravity undeniable. Her boss's eyes flicked to her fiancé, silently coordinating, silently reinforcing the pressure. Every glance, every subtle gesture, tightened the tension. The truth wasn't just a revelation, it was a weapon now, wielded with precision. He opened his mouth, searching for some defense, some excuse, but found only silence. And in that silence, the entire hallway seemed to contract, holding its breath with us. The consequences of years of deception were pressing in, impossible to ignore, unstoppable in their inevitability. She stepped forward, finally finding her voice. How could you do this? To me, to us? Her words carried betrayal, heartbreak, and anger all at once. Every tone hit like a hammer, and I felt satisfaction spike inside me, not cruelly, not maliciously, but as a validation of patience and perseverance. Her fiancé moved closer, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Calm, protective, in control. The contrast between him and my husband couldn't have been clearer. The imbalance of power, previously invisible, now visible in every subtle movement and glance. Could he recover from this? Could he rebuild the illusion of control he had carried for so long? Every micro-expression, every twitch, betrayed him. His composure cracked further with every passing second, and I knew that the unraveling had only begun. Mark's presence at my side reminded me of the careful choreography I had executed to bring this to life. Every detail, every subtle step, every timed action had led to this moment. And yet, unpredictability remained. The shadow on the balcony had shifted the variables, and I could feel the tension teetering on the edge of chaos. He finally spoke, voice strained, almost unrecognizable. I didn't. The words faltered, weak against the weight of truth. Panic was settling in. The realization of betrayal, once hidden behind arrogance, now consumed him entirely. I took a deliberate step closer, letting my presence press the truth into every corner of his awareness. It's too late. You lost control the moment you thought you could deceive everyone. My words were sharp, precise, unyielding. Her boss stepped forward, adding weight to the declaration. Consequences aren't optional. They don't wait for apologies or excuses. His calm authority made it clear this confrontation was final, and the stakes were absolute. The hallway seemed to shrink further. Every heartbeat, every breath, every glance was amplified. He could no longer manipulate the room, no longer charm his way out. The network of lies he had woven for months, perhaps years, was now collapsing, each thread severed with precision. She looked at me, her expression torn between shock and relief. I can't believe this, she whispered. The confession of disbelief was almost tangible, reverberating through the tension-heavy air. Her fiancé's eyes softened as he squeezed her hand, grounding her amidst the chaos. Calm, protective, unshakable. He was the anchor in a storm my husband had never anticipated. And that contrast, that imbalance, made every subtle movement, every flicker of panic, hit harder. My husband's voice wavered again, desperation creeping in. Please, I can explain. His tone was pleading, almost childlike in its fragility. The arrogance had evaporated entirely, replaced by raw vulnerability. I shook my head slowly. No, you've had every chance to tell the truth. You chose deceit instead. Now you face the consequences. Every word carried the weight of months of planning, heartache, and strategic patience. Her brother stepped forward, authority sharp in every gesture. This is your reckoning, and it's not negotiable. His words weren't just directed at him. They were the embodiment of truth, inevitability, and consequence all at once. Could he even recognize the gravity of what was happening? Could he understand that every choice, every secret, every betrayal had converged into this moment? The tension in the hallway pressed against him, invisible yet palpable. Her voice broke again. I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you betrayed me. Each word struck like lightning, cracking the illusion he had tried so desperately to maintain. The hallway was electric. Every glance, every micro-expression, every breath carried weight. My husband's face shifted from panic to desperation, and then, finally, recognition. He understood, fully, the magnitude of the chaos he had created. I felt a surge of satisfaction, tempered with relief. The plan had worked. The confrontation had escalated exactly as I had intended. And yet, even in this moment of apparent victory, one thought lingered in the back of my mind. What if he still tries to fight back? The boss's presence, the fiancé's grounding, her brother's authority, and my own positioning created an unbreakable net. Every path of escape had been blocked. Every lie had been exposed. And yet, unpredictability still loomed. Then came the first tear, a sob, a fracture in his composure that signaled the complete collapse of his control. And in that sob, the final truth landed. The reckoning was complete, but not yet resolved. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. Every step, every careful calculation, every heartbeat had led here. The storm was no longer theoretical. It was real, and it had claimed him entirely. But as I prepared to step back and let the moment breathe, a new sound shattered the fragile calm, the distant ringing of a phone, urgent and insistent, echoing down the hallway. Its timing was impossible, its purpose unknown, and I realized instantly, even in the climax of truth, there were still twists left to unfold. The ringing phone sliced through the hallway like a blade, and I froze, heart hammering. Who could it be at this precise, volatile moment? The air felt charged, thick with anticipation. Every person in the corridor shifted, senses sharpened by tension. This was the final act, the moment when all secrets collided. I moved toward the sound, each step deliberate, measured, yet edged with urgency. My husband's eyes followed me, wide and uncomprehending, panic written in every line of his face. Could he truly fathom what had been set in motion? Could he understand that the walls of deception he had built were crumbling around him, faster than even I had predicted? I picked up the phone. A pause. One deep breath to steady my pulse. The voice on the other end was calm, almost casual, yet it carried authority, weight, and inevitability. "Mr. Parker," it said. My husband stiffened visibly. "We have evidence. Everything you've done, every transaction, every lie, every affair. It's all documented." His lips moved, but no words came. His mask of arrogance shattered entirely, leaving only raw, exposed fear. The moment of total reckoning had arrived. Could he plead, justify, or manipulate now? The silence answered that question, no. I lowered the phone, allowing the weight of the revelation to settle in the hallway. Her eyes met mine, wide, questioning, but now with a spark of understanding. Relief mingled with disbelief. I could almost see her processing months of betrayal in real time, connecting the dots that I had traced silently for so long. Her fiancé stepped closer, protective, steady, grounding her amidst the chaos. His presence was a silent signal. They were united now, stronger than the lies and deceit that had sought to divide them. And in that unity, my husband realized, too late, that he was powerless. Mark's hand brushed against my shoulder, subtle, steady reassurance. The plan had unfolded as meticulously as we had envisioned. Yet even now, unpredictability lingered. The final thread could unravel, or snap entirely, depending on his next move. He swallowed, trembling. Evelyn. Words faltered. Desperation flared. For months, he had manipulated, lied, and evaded. Now, stripped bare, he faced the full weight of accountability. Could he truly grasp the gravity of his actions? Or was he still clinging to the illusion that charm could erase consequences? I stepped forward, gaze steady. It's over. Not because I said so, but because the truth doesn't care about your excuses. The words landed heavy, final, irrefutable. Every lie, every betrayal, every calculated move to hide reality had been exposed. The stage was set, the players revealed, and the reckoning inevitable. Her brother's eyes glimmered with controlled intensity. You've had your chance, and now it's clear, you can't control anyone anymore. His presence amplified the collapse, reinforcing that the walls he relied on were gone. A tremor ran through him, subtle but undeniable. Panic, realization, and despair collided in a mix too potent to mask. And I knew this was exactly where I wanted him. Vulnerable, exposed, forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Her voice, steady now, cut through the tension. I trusted you. I gave you my love, my loyalty, my life, and you threw it away. Do you even understand what that means? Her words carried months of hurt, heartbreak, and disillusionment, coiled tightly with newfound strength. His knees weakened. A faint tremor ran down his spine. He swallowed again, searching for an anchor, some excuse, some escape, but none existed. The walls of deceit had collapsed entirely. Every ally he thought he had was gone, every shield he relied on broken. And in that silence, the weight of truth pressed down unrelenting. Mark glanced at me. Subtle nod. The final phase. We had orchestrated everything. The confrontation, the timing, the evidence, the witnesses, all aligned. Now it was time to let the final moment unfold naturally, leaving no room for ambiguity. Her fiancé, calm, deliberate, locked eyes with her. Then he turned to my husband. You've had your chance to be honest. You chose deception. Now it's time to face what comes next. His words were precise, surgical, cutting away every layer of arrogance, leaving only raw consequence. I watched as the last of his composure crumbled. Panic surged, desperation flaring in every line of his body. He staggered, grasping for control, but there was none left to grasp. The truth had claimed its victory, unyielding, undeniable, and absolute. Then, unexpectedly, he slumped, silent, finally accepting the magnitude of the collapse. A single tear traced down his cheek, but it was too little, too late. The weight of months, years, and betrayals had settled firmly on his shoulders, leaving only the stark reality of what had been lost. I felt a surge of relief, tempered by reflection. Months of planning, observing, enduring, and strategizing had culminated in this precise moment. And yet, a part of me knew the emotional journey was only fully realized when we could walk away whole, not just victorious. Her eyes met mine once more. Gratitude, recognition, understanding, the silent acknowledgement that the chaos had been necessary, that the exposure had been inevitable, that the reclamation of power and dignity had been achieved. I stepped back, exhaling slowly. The storm had passed, though the echoes of the confrontation would linger in the hallway, in the minds, in the memories of everyone involved. But now, the path forward, clear, resolute, was ours to walk. Mark gave a small, approving nod. The final checks of the plan had aligned. Every calculated risk, every subtle maneuver, every tiny act of patience had brought us to this crescendo. And it was perfect. Her fiancé took her hand, grounding her in a future that had once seemed uncertain, vulnerable, and fragile. The transformation from chaos to clarity was complete. Every betrayal, every manipulation, every secret had served its purpose in revealing truth, justice, and unassailable strength. I turned to him one last time. My husband, defeated, humbled, and fully exposed, met my gaze. No words were necessary. He understood the full measure of consequence, the depth of exposure, the permanence of truth. And in that silence, in that moment, I finally felt it. Closure. Not just for the betrayal, not just for the deception, but for every sleepless night, every silent tear, every moment spent reclaiming power from someone who thought they could control it all. The phone, still resting in my hand, vibrated again, a reminder of the outside world, of business, of life continuing beyond this confrontation. I ignored it. The moment had already passed, and the resolution was absolute. Her brother gave a subtle nod. The rest is up to them, he said. The words weren't just literal, they were symbolic. Justice had been served, truth had triumphed, and the threads of manipulation had unraveled completely. I stepped back into the hallway, exhaling a long, deep breath. The tension dissipated slowly, replaced by a quiet, satisfying calm. The storm was over, the reckoning complete. But as I watched him, small, diminished, facing the consequences of choices made over months and years, I knew this. The power of truth, patience, and strategy had been reclaimed. And nothing, not arrogance, not lies, not betrayal, could ever touch it again. I turned away, ready to step into the next chapter of life, stronger, wiser, and unbroken. The hallway was silent, but it was filled with the resonance of accountability. And in that final, lingering moment, one thought pulsed sharply in my mind. This was not just a victory, it was liberation. If you're enjoying Evelyn's story and want to see more intense, twist-filled tales like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from. Your support helps bring more thrilling stories straight to you.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.